This is the Alien Annihilators, Chapter 29, The Asteroid. When CLEO had told her friends the danger they were in now, Kenneth had assured them that they would make it on time. CLEO wished she believed it. They were seated at the control panel with a galaxy map on display and the built-in GPS. Right here it shows how fast the ship is going, 400 kilometers per hour. And right here shows how many kilometers to reach our destination, 50 kilometers, Kenneth said. CLEO tried to work out the math in her head. Those numbers suggest we'll make it onto the lonely planet with just enough time to exit the spaceship and quickly escape the blast radius. It'll be close, but as long as we stay on our current course, we should be just fine, she said. Rachel looked noticeably relieved by this news. But then CLEO thought of something. But wait, something's gonna go wrong, I know it. Selena knows we're coming. She knows we have the Gauntlet of Light, and knows that we're gonna put up a fight once we get on that planet. Kenneth and Rachel exchanged grim looks at this news. Then Kenneth spoke up. So what do we do now, CLEO? CLEO spoke firmly. We destroy anything and everything she may send our way. CLEO had remembered seeing stairs in the hallway leading to the spaceship's main room. She led her friends through those stairs, then another flight of stairs, then another. Soon they were on the spaceship's top floor. The entire front wall was thick glass, which gave them an excellent view of where the ship was headed. It also gave them a good view of what was headed their way. Rachel squinted at the small object in the distance. CLEO, you still have that laser glove thingy? Yeah, why? CLEO asked, a little afraid of where this was headed. Rachel confirmed her suspicion by pointing at the object she'd just spotted. It was growing quickly, and soon CLEO was sure she knew exactly what it was. Rachel spoke. A big rock, an asteroid. It's headed right at us, and holy crap, it's fast. Do we have time to avoid this thing? Kenneth? Kenneth was the expert on whether or not they could make it in time to avoid the impending time bomb explosion. He checked his watch. 8 minutes left until the bomb explodes. Making a sharp turn to avoid the rock at this velocity, we never land in time to avoid the explosion. Rachel turned to CLEO. She put her hands on her shoulders and shook her. Do something, for God's sake. Whatever you did to that turret before we boarded the spaceship, do that to the big freaking rock headed our way. CLEO grabbed her upper arms and shoved her to the side. She got a little angry. Look, I don't know what I did back there, but it's more complicated than that. How? How is it more complicated than that? You think you have it so bad having the gauntlet choose you of all people, having in your hand one of the most powerful weapons in the universe. CLEO just turned around and walked a few steps and thought, how had I done that earlier? What was my secret? Rachel grew impatient. She turned to Kenneth. We're about half a minute away from being blown to stardust. We have to change course. Kenneth just gave Rachel a withering look, and she asked, What? What did I do? You're making her doubt herself by being condescending, and you're rushing her and putting too much pressure on her, stressing her out. So just go downstairs and let me talk to her, okay? Rachel threw her arms up. Okay, take as long as you need. Just ignore the asteroid headed right at us. But she did as he told her. Kenneth walked up behind CLEO and put his arms around her. His head rested on her right shoulder, and CLEO leaned her head slightly right, resting her head on his. I get it, CLEO, being given a powerful weapon but not being told how to use it. This must all be very hard for you, very complicated, Kenneth said. Kenneth continued, but right now we're in a very difficult situation, one that threatens our lives. After a moment of silence, Cleo spoke. Rachel strongly encouraged me to imitate whatever I did to that turret, but even if I could do that, it wouldn't be enough. That asteroid is the size of what? A couple dozen school buses. Try to remember what was going through your head the moment before you shot down that turret. Just anything, he said. Cleo thought hard about that moment hours before. Falling to the ground behind that metal table, seeing the metal on the table begin to weaken from that ruthless spray of gunfire. Her friends' terrified faces. Kenneth. The last thing I saw right before shooting that beam of fire. Cleo turned around to look into Kenneth's eyes, his arms still around her. What did you see? Kenneth asked softly in a whisper. You. I saw you, saw the fear in your eyes, and a feeling so strong overcame me. It happened so fast. I think this feeling gave me the strength I needed to power the gauntlet, make it perform as devastating a blast as it did on that turret. Kenneth grinned a little. So let me get this straight. You saw me, saw what you were protecting, and the gauntlet bent itself to your will once you knew what you were fighting for. Cleo blushed a little. I know that must sound quite silly. No, honestly, it doesn't sound silly. Not a bit. The power of love appears to have bonus merits where this gauntlet is concerned. Cleo began to turn her head around to look at the asteroid that was most likely almost upon them, but Kenneth turned her head back to facing him. He kissed Cleo slowly and lovingly, and Cleo eventually surrendered to him, kissing him back. When she pulled her head back from the kiss, "Oh my God," she said, once she saw the gauntlet on her hand. It was glowing a brilliant red color, with flames dancing and swirling on its surface. Kenneth saw the flame and said, "The gauntlet. It must be responding to the kiss, to the power of the love. You must stop." Cleo swung her arm to the glass wall, and a beam shot out of her glove so fast she had to stop the recoil, threatening to put a hole through the roof. The beam put a hole in the glass, and when it made contact with the asteroid, she wanted to cover her ears, but knew she couldn't. To her disappointment, the beam was simply slowing the asteroid down, but not fast enough. The object was nearly upon them. At the last second, Cleo summoned even more power from the gauntlet, and the asteroid was actually sent flying to the right, safely out of the spaceship's path. And there it was, the lonely planet. They were so close by now. It looked like they were going to crash land. Chapter 30. Lord Blazer. Cleo reacted to the threat immediately. Somehow, she made a golden circle around herself, Kenneth, and even Rachel. She didn't have time to think about how Rachel got there. She stretched forth her hand and shot the back wall so hard, its recoil sent them crashing through the glass wall, shattering it to pieces. Now they were hurtling towards the rocky surface of the planet at an insane velocity. Cleo used the last of her strength to laser the surface of the planet, desperately trying to soften their landing. The impact of the landing sent the three friends tumbling everywhere. The golden protective light kept them safe from the rocky surface of the planet, but being thrown around in there was still quite painful, and when Cleo felt her head hit against something, she blacked out. When Cleo awoke, the first thing she felt was metal cups against her wrists. She was lying down, and when she opened her eyes, oh, she thought, those stairs, that ancient-looking building, a woman, Melinda. She immediately sat upright and pointed her gauntlet at her, then realized she didn't have it. Dang it. Nice try, CLEO, dear, but lethal weapons are not permitted. We are here to witness and celebrate the resurrection of Lord Blazer. Selena will be out in just a few minutes, Melinda said. CLEO realized that Melinda was carrying something in her arms. Melinda was facing away from her, though, so she didn't get a good look at it, but it must have been Lord Blazer. Selena had said. Melinda glanced at CLEO and caught her looking at Lord Blazer. She grinned evilly. But of course, where are my manners? This is Lord Blazer, the rightful ruler of planet Earth. For centuries yet, he has been too weak to fight for what is rightfully his. That fool, Gregory Brunt, is to blame for it. But today marks the turning point in the history of the world you once knew. Death and hellfire will consume your world once again, and there will be nobody to stop it. Not you, not your pathetic friends, no one. At the reminder of her friends, she looked around her. She saw that she was shackled to a large stake in the ground, and her friends were shackled to a stake just behind her. She also saw Melinda's spaceship and saw a person peeking from its side. Brandon. CLEO didn't want to draw attention to him, so she quickly looked away. Brandon had special powers. He was some kind of mage with magic abilities. He had to be thinking of a way to break us out. Brandon must have been waiting for just the right moment to pull off one of his magic tricks, maybe even foil the alien sister's attempt to resurrect Lord Blazer. CLEO just needed to make sure Melinda never noticed him. She spoke. You sent that asteroid at our spaceship. You tried to kill us. Why be merciful now? Melinda sighed in exasperation. When I saw your battered and unconscious bodies on the rocky surface of this planet, I wanted to kill you, believe me. But Sister Selena, always the show-off, told me she wanted to see your horrified faces when you witnessed Lord Blazer's revival, though I suppose there isn't any harm in it. CLEO looked towards the temple. It was deathly silent, which made her wonder, how is Selena not out yet? Shouldn't she be out by now? The emergency exit I suggested she take leads to a complex labyrinth of tunnels underground. It's taken days by now, but Selena believes she is nearly out. When stone scraped against stone, CLEO knew what that had to mean. A stone slab on the dais in front of the temple was pushed aside, and up climbed Selena, red orb in hand. A smile grew on Melinda's face, and once Selena stood up and saw Melinda, a smile grew on her face as well. Melinda put Lord Blazer down and ran to embrace her sister. The second they embraced, something was thrown right in front of her. Oh my God, CLEO thought, the gauntlet of light. But how? CLEO looked towards Melinda's spaceship and met Brandon's eye. He was making urgent gestures, pointing at the gauntlet, then at Lord Blazer, then ran a finger across his neck. CLEO turned her head back to the aliens in front of her. They were just breaking their embrace, and Selena. CLEO quickly stretched out her foot and kicked the gauntlet towards her, then grabbed it and tucked it behind the thick wooden post behind her. What was that? Selena demanded. What was what? CLEO asked innocently. You made a sudden movement, as if... I don't know, it just seemed odd. Never mind. Selena looked at the chains that kept CLEO bound, then looked at her sister, then at CLEO. A smile broke out on her face. CLEO, dear, it was impolite of you to lock me in there, though I should have known you'd pull something like that, little sneak. Sister, sweet girl, Melinda said, I understand how smug you must feel, free from your temple prison, while Cleo is shackled to a wooden stake. But we mustn't forget the oath we swore. We must bring Lord Blazer back to his former glory, and within your hands lies the power to do so. Selena smirked. My apologies, I couldn't resist. Selena smirked. My apologies, I couldn't resist. She walked down the steps towards a little, shriveled creature that lay on the floor, and Cleo prepared to reach behind her for the gauntlet. When Selena stepped over the creature and towards her, Cleo slowly took her hands away from the gauntlet. She didn't want Selena to suspect. Eventually, Selena stood before her. She slid the orb in her pocket and taunted. Miss Cleo, great heroine of prophecy, stumbles onto this planet in a ball of light, only to have everything come apart. My sister only had to drag your unconscious bodies, have them chained without issue. As for your weapon, the Gauntlet of Light, it is locked in a safe, using powerful magic. Not even the most skilled mages of the universe could unlock it, she taunted. Cleo just shrugged, as if she'd already given up on stopping her, but inside she wondered how the heck Brandon could have possibly gotten the gauntlet out. And as for Brandon, my sister Melinda says the same magic locks the prison she put him in, so don't expect that jackass to come to your rescue, girl, she sneered. Once she was done ridiculing Cleo, she turned around and slowly paced towards the creature on the ground. She was clearly savoring every moment of this. Not for long, though, Cleo thought. Cleo heard a loud pop sound, and then both shackles miraculously snapped open and fell to her sides. Selena heard the sound and began to turn back around to see what had. Bang! Cleo used the gauntlet to set off a focused explosion at Selena's feet. Startled by the noise, Selena threw the orb into the air. It landed some distance away, still intact. Selena composed herself, held both arms outstretched towards Cleo, and immediately flames danced on her palms. Melinda stood in the same position, not far behind her. Stand down, sister, I've got this, Selena said. Are you crazy? Melinda demanded. This girl managed to break the potent magic that held the shackles in place. This girl is dangerous. I said I've got this, Selena repeated. Melinda reluctantly complied. How did you unlock those shackles? Selena asked. There are only 4 mages in the world who have the magical prowess to unlock those chains. Cleo didn't know what to say, because in actuality, she hadn't unlocked those chains herself. 4 mages in the freaking world, Cleo thought. Brandon is probably the one who unlocked my shackles. Is he one of these mages? What is he hiding? How is he such a powerful mage? Realization dawned on Selena's face, and she spoke to Melinda. Your prisoner, he was in the alien Annihilators laboratory, correct? He's one of them, she asked. Melinda nodded. He showed great expertise in the art of magical defense, but I managed to cast an explosive spell across his magic shield, sending him flying. He suffered a moderate concussion. When Cleo and her brats managed to escape on their helicopter, I handcuffed him and put him in a cell on board my spaceship. He wouldn't give me his name, but he did have ID on him. Brandon Brunt. Selena's heart sank. Oh no, the prophecy. It said one descended from Gregory Bruntwood would have. Do not fret, sister. Unlocking a couple magic locks is one thing, But defeating Dark Lord Blazer is another thing entirely. If it is just him and this girl who stand against us, they have no chance, for the prophecy calls for 4 of Gregory's descendants standing together in battle. Selena looked towards Melinda's spaceship. She called out, "Brandon Brunt, step away from the spaceship and face us like a man." There was silence for a moment. Then Brandon came out and briskly walked until he was at Cleo's side. He held his arms out, and a ball of white light appeared there. They stood facing each other, weapons ready to be fired, powers ready to be bursted to the opposing force. Melinda and Selena transformed into their alien forms, tall, black, dark green creatures with sharp teeth, claws, and a long tail and barbed scales along it. Melinda threw a wave of flame at Brandon, but he knocked it aside with the magic's shield. When the flame stopped, he hurled a dagger of light towards her, spinning, but Melinda managed to swat it to the side. Selena sprinted towards the orb out in the distance, but Cleo burst off after her. She even used a burst from her glove to propel her into the air, and landed right in her way, glove held to her. "I can't let you do this." "But I don't want to have to hurt you. Just let me take the orb and destroy." Selena rushed towards her, claws ready, but when the claw was just about upon her, she summoned a dagger of light, and it met in between 2 talons. She had to push really hard, but the blade was slowly lowering towards her own neck. Summoning all her reserves of strength, she pushed the dagger against the claw, and once it was a safe distance away, she leaped back. She began to charge a beam of explosive energy, but Selena whipped out her tail, and wrapped it around the gauntlet, almost tearing it off her, but she set off the explosion in the air, and it was enough to get the tail to retreat and have Selena take a few steps back to recover from the pain. "Damn it," Cleo thought. "If only I could charge that ability long enough." She summoned a bow of light, pulled back the string, and let an arrow fly. But Selena's tail was too quick and knocked it out of the sky. Cleo continued this even as Selena came at her, and eventually an arrow made its way into Melinda's mid-thigh, and she fell to her knees briefly, calling out in pain. Cleo summoned a spear of light and thrusted forwards, but Selena managed to grip it with her claws and pull Cleo towards her. She thrusted her head at Cleo's head, and when they connected, Cleo screamed loudly and fell to the ground. She knew she had to get away from Selena and rolled just in time to miss a deadly swing from Selena's claws. They instead scraped against the rocky planet floor. Once Cleo was seated up, she could see Selena. She was approaching her, talons ready, and Cleo had to flee backwards on her hands and feet, head still hurting. Cleo could see flame begin to form on Selena's claws and grow in intensity. She summoned a spear of light around her just in time to shield herself from a fiery onslaught of furious flame. She used a burst from the glove to send herself towards Selena. She couldn't see anything through the flames, but when the spear connected with Selena, the flame ceased and she was sent flying backwards. Cleo had barely managed to keep the spear up through all that flame, and was sent tumbling to the rocky floor at considerable speed. Once it flickered and faltered out of existence. Once she was still, her body was battered, bruised, and bloody, and she felt a cut on her hip from where it scraped itself on a sharp rock during the uncontrollable ragdoll tumble across the rocky planet floor. When she sat up, she could see Selena limping towards her. She had been sent hurtling through the air by the impact of the golden sphere, and likely suffered injuries that would have killed a human. But she was alien, and those scales looked like they could take a serious beating. Cleo was lucky to have evened the odds as much as she had. But she was out of the fight. Her forehead had a bump and it hurt badly. Her various bruises ached every time she attempted to move, and blood was gushing at an alarming rate out of the wound in her side. The battle was over, and as Selena limped towards her for the finishing blow, it appeared she wasn't going to come out of it alive. But suddenly, her wounds, they became more bearable, and she actually felt like she could get up onto her feet. So she did, and walked straight towards the temple to the left. A plan was beginning to form in her mind, and it involved tricking Selena into going into the temple with her. Chapter 31. The Chapel. Cleo had just enough time to duck into the first room in the corridor until she heard the front door open again. Selena. You know how this ends, Cleo. You die, and I finish what I started centuries ago, and bring Lord Blazer back to life. The only human that ever put up a challenge against us in the last few centuries. When we conquer the world, they won't even know you lived to oppose us. The words chilled Cleo to the bone, and she knew the odds were against her, but she couldn't lose hope. She'd hidden herself behind a couch, and as she began to hear Selena's footsteps, she attempted to summon a dagger of light into her hands, but all she summoned was a bit of flickering light. She knew that if she did summon a dagger of light, the light would certainly be seen in the dimness of the temple, but she had no choice. She didn't have any steel weapons, and even if she did, they would be significantly less effective against the alien's hard, scaly flesh. The door to her room creaked open slowly, and Cleo knew Selena was at the entrance to her room. Oh no, Cleo thought. I need more time to summon a light dagger. I have to get out of here. As Selena began to walk round the couch to her position, she slowly crawled round the other way. She was in her old position when Selena did a full circle of the couch. After growling in frustration, she exited the room, going to search the other rooms. Thank God, Cleo thought. She hoped she'd bought herself enough time. How long would it take for Selena to search the same couch in the same room? Cleo began to summon the dagger again, but then realized Selena had left the door to the room open. Should I shut it? She might see the light if she goes back into the corridor. No, Cleo thought. The doors were too creaky. It was too risky. She just had to hope Selena didn't notice. Summoning the dagger took a lot of the little energy she had left, but eventually she had a dagger of light gleaming in the palm of her hand. The blade was short, just over the size of her palm, but if she struck it deep and true, it might be enough. By now the temple was absolutely still and silent. Selena could be next door, or even on the far side of the temple. Cleo had to be careful. Cleo got out from behind the couch and crouch walked to the door. The door was already open, so she peeked her head out of the threshold. The corridor was dark and empty, and Cleo feared what awaited her out there. Nonetheless, she went through the doorway and crept along the corridor, listening carefully for any sound that might indicate where Selena was. Creak. Cleo had stepped on a loose floorboard, and then heard the sudden rush of footsteps from a couple rooms down. Shit, she heard me, Cleo thought, then ducked through the nearest doorway. Cleo ducked under the nearest wooden pew just in time, because a second later the footsteps made it to the room. Cleo could see her clawed feet from where she lay in a prone position. I saw her go in here. She must be in here, Selena said to herself, then proceeded to walk down the aisle between the pews, moving slowly. I have to get out of here. I don't stand a chance against her, Cleo thought, looking at the exit. Selena wasn't looking. If she was quiet, it might take Selena a while to realize she wasn't in there. She looked at the dagger in her hand and remembered how much energy that summoning it had costed her. She had to finish Selena. For as long as she lived, Lord Blazer would have a faithful servant to do his bidding, even if he wasn't resurrected yet. Suddenly, something grabbed her leg and pulled her out from where she lay. It was Selena. She had found her. CLEO grabbed the foot of the wooden bench and desperately tried to kick Selena's hand off her foot, but Selena tugged harder, and now CLEO was on her back. Selena took a swing for her throat, but CLEO ducked her head backwards just in time to miss it, finally managing to kick Selena's hand off her shin. She quickly rolled down the pews, away from her. Just as quickly, Selena was after her, jumping over the benches and taking swings at her every time she was out of cover. CLEO was a tad too quick, however. Soon, she was out of benches to roll under, and she began to feel dizzy. Selena was still after her, and CLEO had a feeling she knew what the alien was going to do next. She climbed up onto the second last pew, just in time for Selena to jump down and look under the pew she had just been under. When Selena saw that CLEO wasn't under there, she began to rise up from under the wooden bench, and CLEO chose that very moment to launch herself at Selena and plunge the dagger right where her heart should be. Chapter 32, Returning to Earth. CLEO felt a huge sense of accomplishment in what she just achieved, killing one of Lord Blazer's servants. She didn't dwell on it very long, though. After a moment of silence, letting the relief sink in and the fear drift away, she turned away from Selena's lifeless body and went to find the exit. She didn't see the black, sludgy creature pierce its way out of the deceased alien. So I wanted to talk about this. I actually edited this because of like the second book. The second book is about like this parasite creature that escaped Selena's Selena's body. So we're gonna explore this issue in the second book. When CLEO left the temple, she saw everyone seated at the steps leading to the temple. Brandon, Rachel, and Kenneth. When she shut the door behind her, everyone looked her way. Their worried faces turned to relief, and they stood up. Is she? Rachel asked, but let the question trail off. Is she dead? Is Selena dead? CLEO nodded slightly, and Rachel smiled and came at her, tackling her in a hug. The others came toward their relief as well, and congratulations. Once they were all seated at the steps, Brandon turned to CLEO and spoke. I take it you're interested in the fate of Melinda, Lord Blazer, and that red orb of power. CLEO couldn't believe she'd forgotten. She'd been so consumed with her fight against Selena. Yeah, what happened to Melinda? Where is she? CLEO asked, looking around. Well, when she saw me destroy that orb, she knew. Wait, CLEO said, joy on her face. You destroyed it. That was the whole point of this mission, and you actually pulled it off without me. She was overwhelmed with relief. I would have never pulled it off if it were just me against two of Blazer's most powerful servants. You distracted Selena from her true task of raising Blazer from the dead, and ultimately put an end to her. Brandon paused. Melinda defended the orb with all her might, but I ultimately prevailed. Once I was over with, Melinda grabbed Lord Blazer, hopped on her spaceship, and took off, leaving her sister behind. It wouldn't be long before she It won't be long before she finds out about the death of her sister, and she will surely be furious. So, Rachel began slowly, our lives can finally go back to normal, right? You do have a spell to get us back to Earth, don't you? Brandon nodded. For now, it may be wise for you to return to your normal lives, but don't get too comfortable. Lord Blazer's rise may have been thwarted for now, but the battle is far from won. The time will come when your efforts will be required once again, but for now, farewell. Brandon cast a spell on the three of them, and they were immediately whisked back to Earth. And that's the end of the Alien Annihilators, Book 1, The Orb of Power. And remember to comment if y'all want me to read The Alien Annihilators, Book 2, The Mages of Magic. And remember to subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.